Hey guys. So I'm getting on here tonight because a couple days ago I settled my lawsuit and I've had questions over the last couple years. Like what happened? Why can't I explain it? And so I thought I'd get on here and kind of explain like what happened, what took place. So let's get into it. Uh, Almost 3 years ago in April, I was in a really bad headspace. Like I was not doing okay. Um, I honestly I had just been dumped and I was hurting and I didn't want to be at home. That's the last place I wanted to be. So I told the kids, I said, "Hey, let's load up. We're gonna spend the day away from the house." So I took them to the movies and we saw Super Mario Bros. And then once that was over, like I still didn't want to go home. So there was a carnival in the Rogue Valley Mall parking lot. And it comes every year. I've never gone to it before. Normally, if I go to any kind of rides or anything, I do like the county fair because I know that they're safer. But against my better judgment, I really didn't want to go home, so we went to the or we went to the carnival. And we were there, honestly, we weren't there long. Maybe 20 minutes or so. We had gotten tickets for the rides and we had done one ride and it's like this ship swing and it's like more like it gets your adrenaline going. Like it's more fast paced. And so afterwards, Aria was like, "Hey, I want to do something that's kind of slower. You know, that was a little bit fast. Can we do something fast afterwards?" Rain was like, "No, I really don't want to, go on any slow rides." So I was like, "Okay, we'll go on this Ferris wheel and then afterwards we can hit a ride that Rain wants to hit because she wanted like the faster rides, the more exciting rides." And for some reason she just really wasn't feeling it. She did not want to go on this Ferris wheel. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's just it's moving faster than most Ferris wheels do. Like it was kind of sped up, but it wasn't going like super duper fast. And so I was like, why don't we just go on it? Everything's fine. Rain's always loved Ferris wheels. She's never been scared of them. She's not scared of heights. So we get on and Rain is just like you can see it. She's nervous, she's anxious, she has anxiety at this point. And I'm not really sure what's going on, but me being me, like I picked on her a little bit about it. I was like, since when are you scared of heights? And I can't believe you're scared of a Ferris wheel and things like that. And we had a good ride around. We went around a couple times. Even though it was a little faster, it was still more calming than the other rides that were there. And so everything was great. The ride stopped and we went to get off. And I told DJ and I told Rain, you guys go first and then I'll come after you. I've got to help Aria off the ride because at this point, she still had her crutches. Um, and so DJ gets off and then Rain gets off and I kind of get off. So I stepped down onto the platform and I kept my right leg up on the ride and then my left leg was down on the platform that, you step onto when you're getting off the ride. And I had a hold of Arya's hand and I was trying to help her off the ride because of her legs. If you've been here for a while, you know our wild ride and she has problems with her legs. So I had a hold of her hand and she was standing up to get off the ride, and all of a sudden the ride malfunctions and it takes off. Now, when it takes off, multiple things happen at like the same time. Like it's almost instant. My right arm gets ripped backwards because sideways and backwards because I had a hold of Arya's hand with my right hand. Um, she goes flying, like, luckily still in the ride, but she goes flying unsecured 50 feet in the air on this ride. I, um, the next car, like, bucket thing that was behind ours came forward and knocked into me, which gave me lower extremity injuries. And then when it knocked into me, it threw me backwards against like this metal almost grate that was behind me, which threw my head backwards, and it whipped after it hit the metal behind me, it whipped forward. So I see that Arya is on this ride. She's unsecured. She's 50 feet in the air. I am screaming, my baby, get her down. Um, the the man that was controlling the ride, rushes over. He wasn't that far from us when we were getting off the ride, but he was like trying to like open this gate for other people. So he rushes over and he's like, "Okay, okay, I'm gonna reverse the ride." He stops it and then he reverses it. Arya gets down to where I can get her. And I get her off the ride as fast as I can, and I'm looking at her up and down, and I'm like, "Are you okay? Like, are you okay?" And she looks at me and she goes, "Yeah, mom, I'm okay." And me knowing my child, like, she's not one to really complain a lot. And so, for my own sanity, I asked her again. I said, "Are you sure you're okay?" And she looks straight in my eyes and she goes, "Yes, mom, I'm okay." And at that moment, when I had that clearance that she was okay, is when I realized I wasn't okay. And all of a sudden, like, pain just shot through my entire body. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm not okay." And so I was like, "I need to sit down." And so I went over and I sat down, and I've got, people crowding around me trying to figure out what's going on. One, I don't know, one off-duty EMT asked if I would strip down to show him my injuries, and I refused. We were in the middle of public, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." Um, and then they asked if I needed an ambulance. I declined an ambulance. The main reason I declined was because I knew that all three of my kids could not ride in the ambulance with me, and I had nobody to call to come and get my kids. So I told them no, it's totally fine. I told them I am gonna drive myself to the hospital, um, which I did. I loaded the kids up, and we got in the car and we drove to the hospital. When I got I still didn't know what the extent of my injuries were. Most of where I was hurting was my neck, my head, and then like my body that was underneath my clothing. So I didn't know what my injuries were. When we got to the hospital, they were like, "You need to strip down into this gown." So I went to strip down. I took my pants off, and all of a sudden I see this like 8 to 10 inch gash on my thigh. And I was like, "Oh my God." And again, me being me, I gotta make jokes and, pick on people, and that includes myself. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll have a really wicked scar. And the kids are like, Mom, I'm like, sorry, that's how I am. Um, and then like I got to look at like my pelvic stomach area, lower abdomen, and it was just forming, but it was like a bruise, like I'd say, bigger than a football, a little bit smaller than a basketball. I couldn't see any more injuries on myself. I wasn't standing in front of a mirror. So those are the only two injuries I saw at the time. Those were not the only injuries I got. Um, I was cleared by the hospital. Um, took care of my laceration to my thigh, and the bruising, can't really do much about that. I got home. I wasn't too bad at that point. Um, the next day when I woke up, I could barely move. I hurt from head to toe. So I headed back to the hospital. I couldn't turn my head. Um, my head was killing me. All of the areas that I had gotten hit by the ride or I hit behind me, um, they were excruciating. And so I could barely walk, but I was able to get out to the car, got to the hospital. Doctor looked at me like I was a moron. He's like, "Why'd you come back?" And I was like, "Look, I have all these new symptoms, nausea, headache, symptoms of a concussion." Um, and they did some more scans, CT, things like that, and they're like, you have a concussion and whiplash, and you have a lot of injuries, bruises, the laceration, things like that. And I'll be inserting some pictures of that kind of stuff at the end of the video. So warning, if you don't want to see the injuries, just at the end of the video, I'll warn you, and you can just exit out of the video. There won't be anything that shows anything that's like inappropriate or anything like that. Just bruises and the laceration on my thigh. Got home, still in excruciating pain. I took it easy for a couple of days. And then I realized I didn't want to let this go. I have been in accidents before. I have had more reasons than most to sue, companies to sue, personal people, car accidents that were avoidable, drinking and driving, things like that. And I've never sued anybody before. But this one really got to me. And I think part of why it got to me is, one, my baby, my child, was 50 feet in the air unsecured. That was my number one. Two, I have extensive injuries. That wasn't as like pushing on like why I decided to sue, but it was one of the factors. It was a small one, but it was one of the factors. My main factor was that after I got hurt, they got me and Aria off the platform and off the ride, and then they proceeded to reload the ride with women and children. And that to me was not okay. That to me is saying we do not care. We are not responsible for what happens to you, whether it's on our rides or not. And that bugged me. I was like, no, you guys need to learn something from this. Like, this is ridiculous. So I started calling lawyers. Started calling lawyers in my area. Unfortunately, there's not a lot for personal injury in my area. So then I started looking up north. And so up north is like Eugene, Springfield, Salem, Portland, places like that. And I found a really, really good lawyer in Portland, Oregon. And so I was like, "Hey, I want to retain you. I want to sue this company. Like this what they did is not okay. The fact that, my daughter was up in the air unsecured is not okay. The fact that they reloaded the ride instead of shutting it down and trying to figure out why it malfunctioned to begin with is not okay. So, we got to it. He told me, don't post anything on social media, and I already had. So I took all of that down, and some of you had already seen that I had been in an accident. You guys were like, I really hope you're okay, things like that. In other videos, I talked about like I'm still really sore. I'm still healing from the concussion and whiplash, and other people that hadn't seen the post were like, what is she talking about? Like, and they asked me, like, what are you talking about? Like, were you in an accident? And so that's one reason why I was like, I'm going to get on here and I'm going to tell people what happened. Because, when you go to fairs and carnivals and places like that, you're putting your life in the hands of people that, one, they don't have a lot of training, and two, you're putting your life in the hands of people who are supposed to make sure that these rides work properly, but anything at any time can go wrong. And so, I wanted to get on here and let you guys know like what happened to me. It took me, I'd say, a month and a half before I could walk standing up straight again. It took me about 2.5 months before I could bend down at the waist. Because of the bruise that was on my pelvic area and my lower abdomen, I couldn't bend down. Um, that took 2.5 months before that huge bruise went away. Like I said, it was almost the size of a basketball, if not about the size of a basketball. It took another 6 months for me to heal from the concussion and the whiplash. So, I still have a scar on my thigh. I will always have that scar. It will always be a reminder whenever I wear my swimsuit, whenever I get changed and I change my clothes, I see that scar. And it will always be a reminder of, like, I could have lost my life that day. Like, had it hit me in the head, or had, me being thrown backwards at that kind of a speed and force could have done so much damage to my brainstem alone because I hit like right back here. So, I'm thankful to be here, and I am I was upset with the company for not taking it as seriously. The owner called me on my way to the hospital and was like, we'll give you a full day of free rides. And I was just like, why do you think I would ever want to get back on one of your rides? Because not only did it malfunction and it could have taken my life, but then your trained people, like your trained specialists, supposedly, reloaded the ride without seeing why it malfunctioned to begin with. Why would I want to get back on one of your rides? If you take somebody getting hurt that lightly, I don't want to be on one of your rides. Also, to anyone who goes to that carnival here in the Rogue Valley, please, 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 please be careful. You know, I was lucky, and you you may not be as lucky, and that would be really sad. So that's my story. Um, that is why I kept talking about this accident and concussion and whiplash and everything else that I went through. Um, thank you guys for being with me through this whole journey. Um, if you guys have any questions, you can definitely ask me in the comments. Um, and I'll either try my best to answer them or I will answer them. I know I made it on the news, just it wasn't, they didn't know my name or anything. But other than that, I got a pretty fair settlement and I'm happy with it. At first, the insurance company, obviously, insurance companies don't like to pay. And so, they were trying to lowball me, and I was like, no, I'm not going to take that. And so I got a pretty good, settlement. I mean, very good, but anyways, um, again, if you guys have any questions for me, I can answer them now. You can, put them in the comments and I will do my best to get back to everybody. Like I said, I am going to insert some pictures. So, um, I love you guys and thank you for being so patient. Since that accident, it's been really hard to post and stuff, it took and it took a long time for me to heal from it. And then, other things in life started happening. And so we'll see if I can make a comeback or not. If I can't, I'm really sorry, guys. If I can, I look forward to, posting more videos and seeing you guys all here really, really soon. Um, love all you guys and bye. This is where I'm going to put in the pictures. Have a good night.